Taiwan urges China not to politicize trade after Beijing launched an investigation into Taiwanese products. Officials say that China's no-fly zone is not related to recent military drills in the region. Taiwan's farmers suffer heavy losses amid a historic drought. And a dangerous layer of dust blankets parts of Taiwan. But where did it come from? A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao. Taiwan's vice premier is urging China to keep politics out of cross-strait trade. That's after Beijing said it has launched a trade barrier investigation into products from Taiwan. Stash Butler has more.
From seafood to steel, China launched an investigation this week into nearly 2,500 Taiwanese products. It says rules about these items amount to unfair trade because Taiwanese tariffs mean China can't sell those same products the other way.
过去这几年台湾的这个贸易顺差，绝大部分来自于中国大陆，所以我们担心如果他也采取一些片面措施可能对台湾的经济就会相当的灼伤。
China's investigation began on Wednesday, less than a week after President Tsai Ing-wen met US Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a meeting Beijing had warned against. China also says the checks will end, at the very latest, in January, the day before Taiwan's next election. Taiwanese officials say the timing of the investigation is political, but they also say they're willing to talk. In Taiwan and China's last big trade deal in 2010, China agreed to cut tariffs on about 540 items. In return, Taiwan cut about 270. In monetary terms, that meant China eased tariffs on about $14 billion worth of Taiwanese products, and Taiwan, $2.9 billion. At least one economist says Taiwan should consider fixing that imbalance.
也就由这个过程里面，其实我觉得可以检视一下，过去我们一直被认为单方面让利这件事情的一个问题症结啦。
After bans on fruit, beer and grouper fish last year, China's investigation is just the latest unexpected turn in cross-strait ties. And in the run-up to a crucial election here in Taiwan, it's unlikely to be the last. Patrick Chen and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
With these bilateral trade tensions between Taiwan and China, trade was down significantly in the first quarter of the year. China's customs agency says two-way trade was valued at $60 billion in the first quarter. That's down 26% compared to the same period last year. Taiwan's computer chip exports also dropped by 33%. It's the 9th straight month of declines in that sector. President Tsai Ing-wen has praised the country's fighter pilots during a visit to an airbase in central Taiwan. Tsai's visit comes shortly after China conducted 3 days of military exercises around the island. This was in response to Tsai's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, which took place in California last week. The airbase in Taichung on the west coast is the country's second closest to China. During her visit, Tsai praised the Taiwanese airmen for their unity in the face of Chinese aggression.
我要告诉大家，只要我们团结一致，就能够让国人安心，更让世界看见我们守护国家的决心。
A China-imposed no-fly zone near Taiwan this Sunday is linked to the launch of a weather satellite. That's according to Taiwanese security officials. The no-fly zone, which is roughly 85 nautical miles north of Taiwan, was originally scheduled to last 3 days. But Taiwan says it convinced China to shorten it to just half an hour. China later issued a separate sea warning for 6 hours in the area due to falling debris. Taiwanese officials say the no-fly zone is not related to China's recent large-scale military drills. For more on the no-fly zone and how it could affect Taiwan, TaiwanPlus reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Liao, a security analyst with the Atlantic Council based in Washington, D.C.
What do we know so far about this no-fly zone?
So the fly zone is smack in the middle, actually a little bit earlier than the proposed rocket launch of the weather satellite. So the weather satellite is supposed to launch from Jiuquan base at 9:45 a.m. I believe local time. So that's where that's how you got the no-fly zone from 9 to 4 p.m. I believe. That's to basically to give sufficient buffer time in case some of the launch stages and debris actually fell into the area. The fact that they actually marked this area, I think our worry is they didn't actually mark it like large enough, because that's the thing, this is the expected reentry for the for some of the debris and stages that's going to be falling. What if there's an accident? What are the potential danger zones if this launch did not go as planned? Because that's what happened last time with the Philippines issuing warning, and also earlier in Africa.
How significant is the fact that Taiwan says it managed to push China back to shortening the duration of the no-fly zone to 27 minutes?
So I think what we're seeing here is the surfacing of what used to be pragmatic discussions, because there's always tacit understanding on both sides, just like before with the UAV incidents. Like on the operational sides, both sides do talk and they do negotiate and see what's actually reasonable, right? 27 minutes, that's the extent of the launch required for the rocket to reach orbit. The 6 hours, there's a lot of reporting on why 6 hours, right? They perhaps want to basically clean up the debris that actually fell into the ocean. So I would not make too much hay of it. I would actually say it might actually be better that this was not in the news, because that's the nature of tacit understanding and pragmatic discussions.
That was Liao, a security analyst with the Atlantic Council based in Washington, D.C., speaking with TaiwanPlus reporter Jaime Okan. China has sanctioned a U.S. lawmaker over his recent visit to Taiwan. Michael McCall heads the House Foreign Relations Committee. He led a delegation to Taiwan last week when he met with President Tsai Ing-wen. During his visit, McCall said he'd help speed up U.S. arms sales to the country. Beijing views Taiwan as part of its territory and opposes any official interaction between Taipei and other countries. McCall is now barred from entering China and from interacting with any organizations there. In a statement, the congressman said being sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party is a badge of honor. North Korea says it has launched a new ballistic missile. The country's leader, Kim Jong-un, watched the test with his family. It's the North's first successful use of a solid-fuel ballistic missile. That's been a long-term goal for the country. Solid-fuel missiles are easier and safer to operate than liquid-fuel ones. They're also harder to detect. South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea needs more time to develop the weapon. It says the North might carry out more tests. The missile flew about 1,000 kilometers before landing in waters east of North Korea. The country says the test posed no threats to its neighbors. U.S. and Philippine troops live-fired Javelin anti-tank missiles on Thursday during a joint military exercise. The drills took place at Fort Magsaysay on the Philippine island of Luzon as part of the annual Balikatan exercise. Javelin missiles are popular with military forces for their mobility and effectiveness against armored vehicles. Recently, the weapons have been used to slow down the advance of Russian forces invading Ukraine. This year's Balikatan exercise began on Tuesday and involved more than 17,000 troops. The exercise will continue until April 28th. China has recorded the first ever human death from the H3N8 bird flu virus. The World Health Organization says so far there's no sign this virus can spread between people. But an infectious diseases specialist in Taiwan says it's important not to rule out that possibility. John Van Trieste reports.
The World Health Organization says a Chinese woman has become the first known person to die from H3N8 bird flu. She was one of only 3 people to have caught the disease so far, all of them in China. Authorities in Taiwan are taking note. Officials say factors beside the virus itself contributed to the woman's death.
这位死亡个案本身其实也有一些潜藏的慢性疾病有受到这个疾病的影响。
So far, all those who've fallen ill in China have had recent contact with poultry. And for now, the WHO says there's no evidence H3N8 can spread among people. But some are still concerned.
所有的禽流感，大概有好几百种禽流感，它都有可能会演变成人传人。这个禽流感在人类这样子不停的传染，不停的传染，你们都没有发现它，没有去控制它的时候，它会逐渐的适应人类细胞，然后才会变成有效的人传人。
Doctors say that despite the seemingly low risk, Taiwan must continue to be cautious about the virus and its potential to spread. Devin Tsai and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, a play showcasing the life of modern Taiwan people is featured in Taiwan Week. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. On paper, Taiwan's wages are rising, but high inflation is eating into pay bumps, meaning consumers' purchasing power is lower than it was a year ago. $1,487. That was the average wage in Taiwan between January and February this year. It marks an almost 2.4% rise from the same period last year. So why do consumers and small business owners feel like they're making less money? The short answer is inflation.
去年3、4月已经陆陆续续在涨，这半年来是飙涨得更严重。
Things are getting more expensive, so much so that Taiwan's Statistics Office reports that higher prices are eating into any extra money people are making.
经过同期物价的2.74%的平减之后，那目前实质经常性薪资是减少了0.34%。
Even though people on average are making more money, they can't buy as much. So while everyone loves a pay raise, making more money doesn't mean much if people have to spend more to buy the things they need. In related news, though consumers are feeling the pinch in purchasing power, the country's statistics office says the average year-end bonus hit a record high in 2022. But is everyone sharing in the benefits? Joyce Zeng has more.
Soaring food and energy prices have made life hard for people around the world, with inflation taking a bite out of people's earnings. But there might be a saving grace in Taiwan. On Thursday, the country's statistics office said the average year-end bonus for workers hit a record high last year. This extra money is customary in Taiwan's workplaces. Employees often count on it as part of their pay packages. The average annual bonus in 2022 came out to just under $2,500, which is almost $200 more than the year before, a record for Taiwan. The average Taiwanese employee makes roughly $1,400 a month. This means the average worker made around an extra 1.5 months' pay from their bonus. But some citizens didn't get the good news. A possible reason for the confusion? Receiving a bonus depends on what industries people work in. In 2022, the insurance sector handed out an average of 3.5 months of pay in bonuses. Real estate and shipping industries gave out 2 months' salary. But for industries stunted by the pandemic, bonuses were non-existent. Huge payouts in high-performing industries are raising Taiwan's average bonus rate. But that hides the fact that many don't get to enjoy a windfall at the end of the year. So while the news of bigger bonuses is encouraging, not everyone will get to celebrate. Eason Chen and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Environmental Protection Administration has raised pollution alerts across the country. That's in response to a severe sandstorm that's blown across from China. Sally Jensen reports.
On regular days in Taipei, you can clearly see its tallest building, Taipei 101, from most parts of the inner city. But today, it's difficult to make out through this haze, a thick blanket of sandy air that's blown over from China. These sandstorms are a yearly problem for millions across North Asia. Spring winds over the Gobi Desert between China and Mongolia pick up tiny particles and carry them eastwards towards Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. These dust storms can harm your health. And they've been getting worse since the 1960s as the climate here gets hotter and drier. Authorities in Japan and Korea have advised citizens to stay indoors as dust levels in some places soared to 10 times higher than average on Wednesday. Taiwan's Environmental Protection Administration has also issued a warning and ramped down local industrial emissions in the worst-hit regions. On a day like today, the air is so thick that for many, going outside is not an appealing idea. The EPA says the residents may just have to take precautions until Saturday, when it's expected the dust will settle. Andy Schwer and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Farmers across Taiwan are suffering amid a historic drought. The lack of rain is threatening crops as diverse as coffee and mangoes. And as John Van Trieste reports, forecasters aren't expecting much rain for the next couple of months.
For the farmers of Gukeng Township in Yunlin County, it's shaping up to be a disastrous year. Normally, the fields around this central Taiwan town produce a little over 60 metric tons of coffee. But cold snaps and a drought unlike any seen in decades have decimated the latest crop.
1、2月跟3月采收的所有的咖啡豆看起来果实都是好的，可是我们脱皮脱壳之后呢，发现里面都50%以上都是不好的果实。
These losses are part of the $11 million Taiwanese farmers have endured since February. The bulk of crop failures are across Taiwan's central and southern regions, where the drought is at its worst. Other crops facing failure are tea, plums, and a Taiwanese favorite, mangoes. In the southern city of Tainan, Taiwan's mango capital, the local government is stepping in. It set up 29 points where fruit farmers can get water. Together, they can supply 300 metric tons of water a day. The city plans to keep supplying farmers with water for around 2 months, until it hopes Taiwan's rainy season will bring some much-needed relief. Devin Tsai and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Water alert levels have been raised again due to Taiwan's ongoing water crisis. Starting Friday, water pressure in the counties of Hsinchu, Taichung, and northern parts of Changhua has been lowered. These areas are now yellow under a color-coded alert system that classifies water restriction levels. The worst-hit places are Tainan and Kaohsiung, which are under orange warnings. Those areas are also among Taiwan's main semiconductor manufacturing hubs. Authorities say this may be Taiwan's worst drought in decades. They hope the water shortage will ease in May when spring rains are expected. A research team in Taiwan has found that rivers in urban areas have higher levels of microplastic pollution than rural ones. They've linked this contamination to population density. Our reporter Sandy Chi has the story.
Casting a net in one of Taiwan's many rivers. But these men aren't out fishing. They're collecting some samples of water to check for a kind of pollution that's grabbed headlines in recent years: microplastics. For the first time, researchers are looking into the presence of microplastics in rivers throughout the country. Microplastics are plastic fragments or man-made fibers that are less than 5 millimeters long. They mainly come from daily use products, roads, manufacturing, and the breaking down of larger objects. The Taiwan research team has been inspecting water samples collected at rural and urban locations along the Danshui River near Taipei. Other samples are taken from the Wu River in central Taiwan in 2021. The results show an obvious difference in the level of plastics found in different locations, with highly populated and industrial areas most impacted by these tiny particles.
Find that the highest concentrations are in the city center and the urban areas, And that's why we think now that the rivers here in Taiwan probably all polluted with microplastic due to human activities.
Microplastics are so pervasive in the environment. It's been found that humans ingest up to 5 grams of the pollutants weekly. They've been detected in other animals as well.
But it has also been found already that humans eat microplastic, so it's kind of in our daily life. It's in food like seafood or in salt, but it's also in the air like fibers.
Researchers are urging Taiwan's government to set standards and methods to monitor microplastics in the country's water bodies. It's hoped that with stricter regulations, Taiwan can help reduce the harm caused by microplastic pollution. Isan Pan and Tani Chi for TaiwanPlus.
A new invention could change the way trash is cleared from waterways. An underwater robot which scoops up litter such as plastic bottles. It's already doing the rounds in London's River Thames, and its creator hopes its use will soon spread to other parts of the world. John Van Trieste has this report.
In the heart of London, a remote-controlled robot chugs up and down the Thames. As it moves, it swallows river water, filtering out trash and debris. This is Waste Shark, a new way to clean polluted water. It's only about as big as a surfboard, but this robot can take in up to 500 kilograms of waste at a time. And even though it needs to recharge after every 5 kilometers, its designers say it can remove over 22,000 plastic bottles from the water per day. Waste Shark is the creation of Richard Hardiman. He says the idea came to him during a trip to South Africa.
Watching two guys in Cape Town in the harbour there where I was hanging out, and they were in a boat very much like the one we're in now, and they were using a net to take out the rubbish, which was great, but it seemed very inefficient. And I wanted to come up with something that could do that even while we weren't on the water in a boat. So while you were sleeping, we could find a robot that could do the job.
An autonomous version means a remote control isn't even necessary. And Hardiman says Waste Shark is carbon-free and harmless to wildlife. The robot takes measurements of the water it moves through. Over time, this data can be used to gauge how the water quality changes.
So every one of our waste sharks that are in the water is connected via a 4G and 5G connection and sends back water quality data to our servers. So it's picking up things like turbidity, salinity, temperature, pH balance, depth of the water. All of those things that our clients are looking for, not only on the surface, but want to understand what's in the water below it and how, as they clean, that water is getting more healthier.
A single robot costs nearly $25,000 US. But robots are also available for rental at around $1,000 US a month. Hardiman hopes they'll soon be in waterways in other parts of the world.
Thousands of these deployed around the world, acting like little Roombas, cleaning up the water while we're not around 24 hours a day. That is a very viable and very strong solution to clearing out pollution.
Meaning the same sort of tech that powers automated vacuum cleaners could soon be cleaning up polluted waters near you. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan Week, a festival of dance and theater arts, is coming to an end. Our reporter Yvonne Young reports on one of the highlights of the week, a piece focused on Taiwan's indigenous Paiwan.
This is Diat Diatman Episode 1, a dance performance showcasing the life of Paiwan, one of the 16 officially recognized indigenous peoples in Taiwan. Diat Diatman means I, we. The show itself is a trilogy, Bulima, Bu'ulu, and Buvalun, which means hand, head, and wisdom, representing the 3 phases of Paiwan people's life.
那这第一部曲呢，我们用布里马来着手，在讲的是一个双手、巧手，然后就年轻的用双手去创造的。
Bulaluang's works often tied to Taiwan's indigenous culture, but this is the first time he tackles Paiwan, his own ethnic group.
面对自己的族群的时候，更放不开，也更小心。我可能给自己太大的压力，来自于肩负着排湾族人的某个期待。
Bulaluang turned to 2 other Paiwan artists for help.
一个是音乐家阿豹跟画家乐乐胆。那因为有他们2个人一起，所以从他们的身上看见了某一种新的一种不同的诠释，而开启了另外一种新的视野。
The 3 Taiwan artists came together to create Dia and Diamond Episode 1. It started with the Ledan's image.
他的图像出来的时候，我反而就把我带领到另外一个排湾族的宇宙，因而阿豹从图像里面创造了另外从这个电子音乐的这样的一个音乐风格创造出来的音乐，最终我跟舞者从这当中创造了那些身体。
As the choreographer, Liao gave his dancers creative freedom to express themselves in the show.
所以，在这个一部曲里面，你可以在这个作品里面看到每一个人有各自的发展，但不远离布里马的这个核心。
For the choreographer, the performance isn't about explaining the Taiwan, but to showcase what modern Taiwan people are like and how younger generations identify themselves. Howard Zhang and Yvonne Yang for TaiwanPlus.
Amid the hustle and bustle of the big city, an exhibition in Taipei is raising awareness about the need to relax, which included a sleeping competition. The winner was the person who was judged to have slept the best. This was measured by heart rate, which slows down when people are asleep. There was also a competition for zoning out. Those who were the champions at switching off received a free pillow and mattress so they can relax even more at home. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with images of a birthday feast of berries, fresh fruit, and salad for the world's oldest gorilla in the Berlin Zoo. The gorilla's name is Fatou, and she turns 66 this year. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.